Have you ever wondered what led to the outbreak of World War I? It wasn't simply the spark of an assassin's bullet that ignited the powder keg of World War I. No, the origins of this devastating conflict are deeply rooted in a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and tensions that had been growing between the European powers throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In the heart of this intricate network, we find the major powers of Europe, each with its own set of ambitions and fears. On one side, there were the Central Powers, primarily made up of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. On the other side stood the Allies, primarily France, Russia, and Great Britain. These alliances were not merely diplomatic formalities, but were instead underpinned by a volatile mix of national pride, economic competition, and imperial ambition. But what was the match that lit this powder keg? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, Bosnia, was the immediate trigger. This event set off a diplomatic crisis between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, known as the July Crisis. The July Crisis was a series of diplomatic maneuvers and threats exchanged throughout July of 1914. The crisis escalated when Austria-Hungary, unsatisfied with Serbia's response to their ultimatum, declared war on Serbia on July 28. This action set off a chain reaction among the European powers, with Russia mobilizing in defense of Serbia, Germany declaring war on Russia, and France and Britain subsequently declaring war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. So why did the assassination of one man lead to the most devastating war the world had seen up to that point? The answer lies in the intricate web of alliances and rivalries that had been woven over the previous decades. Each power, driven by a mix of fear and ambition, felt compelled to honor their alliances and commitments, leading to a domino effect of declarations of war. So, with the stage set, the world plunged into a global conflict unlike anything seen before. Now that we understand what led to the war, what were the major confrontations and battles that defined this global conflict? Let's dive into the heart of the storm, where the world witnessed the power and ferocity of modern warfare. The Battle of the Marne, often called the Miracle of the Marne, was one of the first major battles. Fought in September of 1914, it was a turning point, halting the German advance into France. The Allies, mainly France and Britain, used taxis, buses, and trucks in a desperate dash to reinforce their lines. Their success prevented the capture of Paris and set the stage for 4 long years of trench warfare. Next, we journey to Verdun, a city on the Meuse River, and the site of the longest single battle of the war. Lasting from February to December of 1916, the Battle of Verdun was a grueling contest of attrition. The German High Command hoped to bleed France white, but instead both sides suffered enormous casualties. The French, under the rallying cry, "They shall not pass," held their ground, turning Verdun into a symbol of national determination. From Verdun, we shift to the River Somme, where one of the bloodiest battles in history unfolded. On July 1, 1916, British and French forces launched a massive offensive against the German lines. The Battle of the Somme was marked by the heavy use of artillery and the tragic loss of life. On the first day alone, the British suffered over 57,000 casualties. Despite the heavy losses, the battle did succeed in relieving pressure on the French at Verdun. Our final stop is the muddy fields of Passchendaele, or the Third Battle of Ypres. Fought in the summer and fall of 1917, it was an Allied attempt to break through the German lines in Flanders. Soldiers battled not only the enemy but the dreadful conditions, with constant rain turning the battlefield into a quagmire. The gains were minimal and the human cost was enormous. Passchendaele remains a symbol of the futile slaughter of World War I. These battles were not just military engagements. They were tests of national resolve, of strategy and tactics, and of human endurance. They were the crucible in which the modern world was forged, and they revealed the grim realities of industrial warfare. The strategies used, the outcomes, and the human cost of these battles have left an indelible mark on history. In the face of such devastating losses, the world was forced to acknowledge the high price of conflict. The Battle of the Marne, Verdun, the Somme, and Passchendaele, each in their own way, shaped the course of the war and the century that followed. With these intense battles, the world saw the grim realities and the devastating cost of modern warfare. Yet World War I wasn't just about territorial disputes and alliances, it was also a war that saw the rise of new technologies. But how did these technologies shape the war? Indeed, World War I was a turning point in the history of warfare, with the introduction and usage of new technologies such as machine guns, tanks, airplanes, and chemical weapons. Let's delve a little deeper into how these advancements transformed the battlefield. Machine guns, for instance, were a game changer. These rapid-fire weapons could mow down rows of soldiers in mere seconds. The devastating power of machine guns led to a shift in tactics, with trench warfare becoming the norm as soldiers sought cover from this deadly new weapon. Then came the tanks. These armored vehicles, a novelty in the early 20th century, provided much-needed protection for the troops and could navigate the treacherous, shell-cratered landscapes of no man's land. Their introduction marked a significant change, moving away from horse-mounted cavalry towards mechanized warfare. The skies, too, were no longer a sanctuary. The advent of airplanes brought warfare to a whole new altitude. Reconnaissance flights gathered crucial information about enemy positions, and bomber planes rained destruction from above, adding a whole new dimension to the battleground. Perhaps the most chilling innovation of World War I, however, was the use of chemical weapons. Poisonous gases like chlorine and mustard gas were used to terrifying effect, causing horrific injuries and death. These weapons changed the nature of warfare, introducing a horrifying new aspect of combat that targeted not just the body, but also the mind, instilling fear and terror. In essence, technology during World War I drastically altered the way battles were fought. The war became more than just a clash of armies. It was a clash of innovations where victory could hinge on who had the better, more efficient killing machines. These technological advancements not only changed the face of warfare, but also set the stage for future conflicts. As the dust settled and the guns fell silent, what was left in the wake of World War I? In the aftermath of the Great War, the world was forever changed. The signing of the Treaty of Versailles in June of 1919 marked the official end of the war. This peace treaty sought to establish a new world order, one built on the principles of justice and peace. But the reality was far from these lofty ideals. The treaty placed the blame for the war squarely on Germany and Austria-Hungary, imposing heavy reparations that crippled their economies. The geopolitical landscape of Europe was drastically redrawn, with new countries emerging from the ashes of the fallen empires. The map of the Middle East was carved up, laying the groundwork for conflicts that persist to this day. The economic impact was profound. Europe, once the center of global economic power, was left in ruins. The cost of the war was astronomical, and the economies of the warring nations were drained. The United States emerged as the world's leading economic power, a position it holds to this day. Societal changes were equally dramatic. The war had a profound effect on the psyche of those who lived through it. The loss of an entire generation of young men, the horrors of trench warfare, and the use of chemical weapons left deep psychological scars. In many ways, the optimism and idealism of the pre-war world were replaced with cynicism and disillusionment. The war also led to significant shifts in societal norms. Women who had taken on roles traditionally held by men during the war began to demand more rights and freedoms. The war also sparked a wave of innovation and technological advancement as nations sought to rebuild and modernize in the post-war world. However, the aftermath of World War I also sowed the seeds for another global conflict. The harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles fostered resentment and anger in Germany, setting the stage for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The failure of the League of Nations, the precursor to the United Nations, to prevent further conflicts, further fueled the descent into World War II. The echoes of World War I, therefore, can still be heard today, shaping our world in ways we may not even realize. The geopolitical shifts, the economic changes, the societal upheaval, and the psychological impact of the war continue to influence our world. And the lessons learned, or perhaps not learned, from the aftermath of the war serve as a stark reminder of the cost of global conflict. The echoes of World War I, therefore, can still be heard today, shaping our world in ways we may not even realize.